And Mike just asked if this will be very long, and the answer is yes, because I got to say everything I know in one time. So, you know,
Everything I
and
know.
that's right.
No.
You better believe it. Get my thing adjusted here. I don't know if I need this or not, but I'll use it if you'd like.
Better for the back and the recording.
Well, that's true. That's very true. So I'd like to start off the talk today with a quote from someone that everybody knows, I'm sure, Charles Schultz.
Oh, nice.
So it's from Peanuts, and Charlie Brown is found himself as a manager of a baseball team, and he's standing out on the mound, and Lucy, his wonderful whoever troublemaker, comes walking out to the mound, and Charlie kind of looking at her like, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "I am sorry, I missed that easy fly. I thought I had it, but suddenly I remembered the other times I had missed." And in the last frame, as she's walking away, she said, "The past just got to my eyes." And so the talk today that they suggested is new now and what's next. So she was thinking about the past, it didn't work. And from Ernest Holmes, Uncle Ernie, said in the textbook on page 147, there is no limitations outside our own ignorance. And since we can't conceive of since we can conceive of a greater good than we have so far experienced, we all have the ability to transcend previous experiences and rise triumphantly above them, but we shall never triumph over them while we persist in going through the old mental reactions. And I do believe that is true. I will put these on because my eyes are very tired, guys.
No problem.
So as I sat down to put some thoughts together, I found myself thinking about waking up, breathing, which was good, and knowing it's a new day, and thinking, so now what's next? That's part of the talk, is what's next. Not because I wake up in a new world every day, like some might think, but because when I wake up, I realize I'm still on this miracle-filled merry-go-round we call Earth. I get myself out of bed, stagger to the bathroom to get dressed, and ready to face whatever life wants to send my way.
That's around 11 o'clock. Right?
That's, yeah, well, sometimes. But my body hadn't adjusted to this new time yet, so it is a little later, but not 11 usually. Yeah. But some days, my memories of yesterday fill my eyes, as Lucy said, and blinds me to what I need to do, but mostly the wonder of what's next takes over. So just out of my brain doesn't always work like everybody else's. So did you ever wonder what a new experience it must have been for spirit to find itself being born into this world and needing to learn all the things that life wants us to learn? So, how to walk, how to communicate, how to learn, how to love in a different manner. So many new things bombards us in such a short period of time. So I'm sure spirit felt overwhelmed. I know that I was so overwhelmed that I didn't walk or talk for the first year. I probably thought to myself, this is all new to me. Now what's next? Why am I here? Where am I going? And oh, what's for breakfast? Couldn't miss that. As a kid in high school, I thought, do I really need to know all this stuff? Will I ever have to use algebra, trigonometry, chemistry, biology, and all of this stuff? Again, I thought, what's next? Where do I go from here? And will I ever need to know any of this? And you may have asked yourself the same questions, even though I was always curious about how things worked and why I was here. I never thought I would use those subjects, and I was right. Yet it was necessary in order to get through school and get my diploma to show I was worthy and I had the ability to learn. And I remember as a young boy, Dad would have me helping him in the garden. And as you can see, I'm about as fair complected as you can possibly find. I'm almost transparent. It's scary. And I hated working in the garden. But Dad would get so frustrated with me that he would finally tell me, just go on, get out of my way, and which I was happy for. And my mother would say, how do you expect him to ever learn if you don't teach him? But she was right as usual, of course. But all I wanted to do was go play ball with my friends. Yet it was something new I needed to learn. And looking back, I wish I had listened and learned more. But I was a kid, and the only thing I could see in my future was a bad sunburn, which I had many. I couldn't see, by the way, I got three colors. It's called white, pink, red, red, pink, white, whatever you want to call it. And I could only see the fun I was going to have in playing ball with my friends that seemed like a lot better plan than working in the garden. But, and speaking of that, I told some of that before, but I was watching on Netflix a couple of weeks ago, a movie called The Hill, and it was about a young boy who was born with a bone problem. He wore braces up to his from his ankles to his knees. All the time he was young, and all he wanted to do was play baseball. That's his dad was a Baptist preacher, and all he wanted his son to be was a preacher. And the kid wanted to play baseball. And so they actually, dad got run out of town from being too strict, and they moved to a new town in Texas. This is a true story, by the way. And the kid wanted to play ball, and of course they made fun of him, out in the sandlot and stuff. So he tore the braces off because he can hit the ball like there was nobody no tomorrow. And he took his braces off, which surprised his dad when he got home, and he could walk. He thought he couldn't walk without him, but he could walk, and he wanted to play baseball. And as it went on, he was the best baseball player in Texas as far as a hitter. He was batting over 400, and for baseball, that's a lot. So he wanted to be a professional baseball player, but he had these bad legs still, but he wasn't in the braces, and so he ended up getting a scout, going to a scouting area, where they could be looked at, and and they thought, you can't run, you can't play professional baseball, you're not going to play. Now his what next is professional baseball. Their what next was something else, like his dad, to be preacher. And so he was up hitting the ball, and it's going over the fence, and it was bumping into where the scout was in his cars. He said, "Who's doing that?" And it was the kid hitting baseballs out of the park. And so anyway, they finally said, he tried to talk him out of being a player, and he said, "I want to play. Just let me hit." And so the guy said, "Okay, I'll let you try out and be hit." So what he did, he ended up made him the designated hitter, and he brought in pitchers that were really good, and even a professional pitcher. And the kid hit 10 straight hits, and the last 11th one he hit a home run. So needless to say, he got drafted into professional baseball. Unfortunately, he never got out of the minors because of his bone problem. So he got to play at least 3 years in the minors, and he retired at 22 because of his bones, But his what next was baseball. He wanted to be that, and that's what he could see himself doing. So let me digress for just a moment. So it's close to Easter, and Easter is all about Jesus and rebirth and flowers blooming and planet coming back to life, and the early morning birds singing their song. And if you are lucky enough to hear the beautiful song that they sing, it'll bring smiles to your lips. But however, thinking back about Jesus, there are lots of things you may not know. So I know we normally don't talk about Jesus in the traditional manner, but I think you may find this interesting. And just like when we were in school, and if not, it's just information to you might use and you might not. Okay. So I don't know how many of you have ever heard of the Essenes. Some of you are familiar. It's good. But they played an enormous role in Jesus's life. And the Essenes were a sect of the Jewish people living in what we would call Palestine now. And it was a communal type atmosphere. And in the 60s, we would have called them hippies.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, today we'd probably call them terrorists. They thought differently. Everyone was considered equal and shared in the bounty. And the men and the women were treated as equals, and not the traditional Jewish teaching, by the way. They believed in using herbs to heal, and Jesus' mother was a known healer in the community. They believed in the immortality of the soul and dedication to God, justice toward all men, hatred of falsehoods, love of truth, and bathing daily. And which by the way, wasn't a common thing. And John the Baptist was Jesus' cousin who also did the bathing, and he also did the, for getting you dunked and wonderful, baptized. Thank you. They didn't believe in violence, but they did believe in education and seeking the truth. To become an Essene, you had to take an oath to live up to their principles. Not everybody could get in. If you could do that for 1 year, you were allowed to eat with the others, but no talking at the table for 2 years. So none of this stuff going on, gossip back and forth on the table. But they believed in a Messiah, and actually they believed in two Messiahs. They believed in a Messiah as a king and a Messiah as a deity. And that Jesus was the Messiah, which the traditional Jewish people never accepted. They were a sect of the Jewish faith, but did not follow all of the Jewish laws. And I believe that's one of the reasons that they said it was okay to crucify Jesus, because he didn't follow their rules, so to speak. Plus, they were looking for someone to overthrow the Romans and kick them out, but Jesus was a pacifist. The Essenes had no weapons. They just had their words. And by the way, the Essenes' teaching is why we are not Jewish today. For that they laid their groundwork for Christianity. And although many Christians have never heard of the Essenes, in my head, I can never heard of the Essenes, but in my head, by the way, I can hear Jesus saying, "Mom, mom, mom, this stuff is great. It's new, but now what's next?" Said, "What do you suppose I do with it? Do you expect me to go out among the public and tell everyone willing to listen about what we believe? Those people will kill me if I tell them." And yet, he did it anyway. And unfortunately, he was right. However, 2,000 years later, his words are still being repeated and believed and considered sacred. And Jesus wasn't the only one that was crucified, although he was crucified on the cross. The Romans wanted to get rid of the whole line of David. They killed his 4 brothers and his sisters and their kids. It wasn't an easy thing, what they did. James, his brother James, was the first leader of the Christian church. And although when James was younger, he said, "Jesus is crazy. Don't listen to him." That's what he told the people. That boy's nuts. And yet he became the first leader of the Christian church, and they ended up pitching him off the roof. So they didn't take it easy on the family. He was a good Roman mafia, I guess, at the time. But another quote from Holmes on spiritual awareness said, "Jesus spoke of the joy which he deemed us to have, that our joy might be full. There is music at the center of everything. The melody is real. We must uncover the song and permit it to saturate our souls with joy. The ancients said the wind whispers and the leaves clap their hands and the morning stars sing together." And Holmes also said in The Science of Mind on 185, "Let us learn to see as God sees, with perfect vision, let us seek the good and the true and believe in them with our whole heart. So then, coming back to modern times, I think about Ernest and how he must have felt when his friends and colleagues said, "You need to write a book." And he went, "No, that's not what I need to do." But they wanted other people to be able to read it, what his thoughts were, and benefit from his knowledge. So I'm sure he said, "You got to be kidding. There are people out there that will crucify me for what I believe." I'm sure that there was, I mean, we're talking 100 years ago, I'm sure there was a lot of people that didn't go along with what he was saying, but he did it anyway. And then they came to him and said, "You need to start a church." And Ernie said, "There is no way I'm going to start a church." He said, "There's enough religions and enough churches already." But he did it anyway. Now there's 400 religious science churches worldwide, churches and teaching chapters worldwide, which is pretty good from one man's mind. And from one man dedicated to what he believed to be the truth. And we have benefited from that many times. So he decided to stop asking what's next and started telling his ideas to anyone who would listen. So I asked you, what is your next? What part can you play in the grand rising of things to come? Where will this teaching lead you along the life's journey? What inspiration does the teaching of Ernest Holmes bring to your mind? I know a guy who was born and raised in Australia. Some of you may have met him, I don't know. But growing up, it was, why am I here? What is my purpose? You know? And so he went to live in India at an ashram, thinking the gurus could be able to help him, and that didn't work. So then he moved on to England and joined a band, thinking music might be the answer, and that didn't work either. So he kind of gave up on his quest, I guess, and moved back to Australia. And there he met up with a Aboriginal gentleman who taught him to play the didgeridoo. Phil Jones, by the way, if any of you happen to know him. And out of that, he started traveling the world, teaching people the benefits of the didgeridoo. He had found his what's next. He had found what he was looking for, which is good. He started to travel the world, and he was been here a couple times, and he's a good guy, and he does play the didgeridoo. I think he played Amazing Grace, I think. With, yeah. He played Amazing Grace with one of, it might have been when Grace was still playing the piano. I don't know, but he played Amazing Grace on the didgeridoo. So I love this teaching because it doesn't restrict my thinking. It actually makes me think. It wants me to grow and expand my thinking. And Ernest Holmes said, "This is what I believe. And if it's not what you believe, then find something that you would go somewhere, then find something that you do believe, and you're going to be a lot richer and fuller for it. But this is how I believe." Okay. So my unrequested advice, because I know you didn't request this, is to find your new now what's next. Step up to the plate and take your swing. No one will remember your strikeouts, but they will remember your home runs. Babe Ruth struck out 1,330 times. But it's the 714 home runs that everybody remembers. Okay. So in life, if life throws you a curveball and you miss, so what? Babe Ruth said he knew every strikeout got him that much closer to a home run. That's the right attitude. So my advice is to swing to the fences, Keep looking for your new what's next. And you might just find it. Namaste.
Thank you, Dad.
Thank you. I know. Questions, answers.
Walida, did he do okay?
It was great.
Your face. Yeah.